Welcome into an off-season edition of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, breaking down everything in Districts 5 and 6. Brandon Baney alongside Sean Kane. Sean, it's summertime, which means we've entered the off-season.
Yeah, it's almost getting nice out. Some places, right? Rained a little bit. It's getting kind of sunny today. Might do some yard work, We'll see.
Yeah, that's for sure. So what are we going to do during the off season? Well, we're not going to go away. We want to maintain a presence. And so, we'll pop on with some off season interviews. We're going to bring different guests on, different athletes, different coaches, different administrators. Really, to me, some of the biggest newsmakers from the past year in East Idaho sports. And so joining us today on our off-season East Idaho Prepcast is the girls basketball coach from Skyline High School in Idaho Falls, Ty Keck. Coach Keck, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. Now, listeners/watchers of the show, there's a couple of different ways you can consume this podcast. You can listen audio only at IdahoSports.com or wherever you download your podcasts. Video version as well at the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page. And so for those of you that are watching the video, you're going to see Coach Keck. He is relaxed right now. Describe the setup you've got going on here.
I brought my laptop from work and I'm just in my living room and hanging out in my recliner with you guys. So
I envision a drink with an umbrella next to you.
Yeah. I need one. I just have my, my guzzle spout water bottle is all. So,
well, we appreciate you coming on because you and your team have had a really nice couple of seasons, these past few years. And really, I thought one of the biggest stories from girls state basketball this past winter was the fact that your team got to the 4A state championship game. I think coming in, a lot of people considered Skyline an afterthought, especially when you're in the shadow of this behemoth from Blackfoot all season. You had lost to Blackfoot, 4 times throughout the course of the season, or 3 times?
This season, yes, 4 times.
Right. And so you match up with Blackfoot again in the 4A state semifinals, and you really took it to them. And it wasn't an upset. That was a true win. You guys just played a lot better than Blackfoot, knocked out the undefeated defending 4A champs. What happened in that game for your team that maybe didn't happen in those previous matchups?
Man, I think there's a lot of things that go into that, but that game in particular, we had lost to him 4 times, but we went into that district championship game that we matched up with them again for the second year in a row. Technically that was our 3rd district championship game against Blackfoot in 2 years because we had the double elimination one the year before. But when we went into that game, we played really well. The girls just were calm and confident, and we attacked them really well. I mean, we went into halftime, and it was like a 4-point ball game, but I don't think either team had broke 20 points yet. So it was just a dogfight back and forth. And then we came out in the second half, and we had a small little stretch in the third quarter that hurt us. And then they came out and, they're a great free throw shooting team. And if you get them in that situation where they get to shoot free throws at the end, they're going to pull away from lots of people. And so when we had them in that spot, we ended up losing by 13. It was about a 7-point game right up until the last 2 minutes of the game. And we went into that locker room, and the girls just, you could just tell there was some confidence about them. They weren't really afraid. They didn't really go, oh man, we can't play with them. I think there was a lot of confidence that came from that. And then it was nice because we got to go play different teams, which we didn't do the year before. We didn't have that option. And so when we went and played Columbia in the play-in game, it let us go, hey, we're still pretty good at basketball. We've come a long ways. We've made some huge strides. And at that point, we were ready. We just knew it. And when we walked into that state champ or the semifinal game, there was just an air of it was our day. The girls felt very confident. I mean, waking the girls up, getting them ready to go to the shoot around. We had 2 or 3 girls that when my assistant coach went and woke them up, they just looked at her in the eye and they said, we're not losing today. And, there was no doubt. That's the easiest way to put that is there was just no doubt in anybody's mind that we could go and play with them. We knew it was going to be a dogfight. We knew it wasn't going to be easy. But we also felt that we had a very solid game plan to take away what they love to do. And I felt like we did a good job of that.
I saw a couple of times during the regular season, opponents try to defend Blackfoot two different ways, where you basically play up man to man and Hadley Humphreys is going to get hers inside. But if nobody else beats you, then you're going to do okay. I also saw a game where Shelley played Blackfoot and they packed it in the paint and basically said, go ahead and let it fly from 3 and we'll take our chances. Humphreys isn't going to beat us. And they hung in for a half, but then, Izzy RV and company got hot. So, I mean, what's the right way to defend that? What did you end up doing in that semifinal game?
We just ended up playing a man-to-man. Our team wasn't really well-versed to be a great zone team this year. So we played them straight up. Obviously we played them 11 times in 2 years. Like we're pretty familiar with each other, right? Like we know each other's tendencies. And so we knew the things that Hadley really wanted to do. We knew the things that Kiana really wanted to do. And for us, those were the two that we really had to slow down. Kiana's actually been the one over the last 2 years that has given us bigger headaches than anything, just because she's so versatile inside, outside, and she creates matchup problems. And so we knew if we could keep her into long 2-point jump shots, not 3-point jump shots, we would be okay. And like I said, we took away Hadley's favorite moves just because we've seen them so many times. We know they were there. And it really didn't matter what our game plan was. The girls had to go out and execute it. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is the girls, especially Taylor Thomas, who has matched up historically pretty well against Hadley, just went out there and she took away her drop steps, and it frustrated that offensive flow. And so it played out in our favor.
Yeah, let's talk about Taylor Thomas, because it was kind of bittersweet, right? Because she ends up injuring her knee. Yeah. Now, did that happen on the actual play? Did it happen as the celebration was unfolding? How did that all go down?
So she hits those 2 free throws to put us up, and it's crazy. It's still just a vivid moment in my mind. They inbound the ball. Izzy's running up the sideline, and I just remember yelling at Taylor, "Get ahead of her," because Izzy's a great player. She's going to make a great play. And Taylor just found a little extra that I'd never seen from her, and she caught up to her, and she was going so fast, and Izzy just gave her kind of a little hesitation shuffle move, and Taylor's momentum couldn't quite keep up with what she was trying to do, and she actually ended up injuring herself as she was going down trying to stall that play out. So it was an actual on the play, it was kind of fun because, not fun, but we got to go in and tell the girls and be like, she literally gave everything for this season. Like she laid it all on the line, just like you ask players to do all the time. She left everything on the floor. It just, unfortunately, it was one game too early. So
definitely. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh no. Yeah. I had wondered the same thing. And yeah, that's what you want at the end of the day, is to say everyone gave it their all, right? So that's amazing. So it would have been nice to have her in the next game though, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think she would
have.
Had a great tournament.
She would
have. Yeah, she did. I think she would have had she would have given us a good advantage, because her skill set, I think, would have given Burley some matchup problems that they didn't have when we had to start shuffling some people around. So
yeah,
she was definitely missed.
And you guys fought really hard against Burley, and then Burley just kind of pulled away in that second half. And that wasn't even the first time your team had faced adversity on the season. You go in expecting to have Maddie Olson, this Division I signee with Montana State University. Well, she injures her knee, right, in soccer season.
Well, I wish she did it during soccer season. I wish it was a soccer injury. I would have felt a little bit better about that. She actually tore her ACL on the last play of Powder Puff.
Oh.
So if that makes you feel any better about all of it. Yeah, she injured her knee on the last play of Powder Puff about 3 weeks before the season started. Realistically, our girls' soccer team probably has a legit shot at winning state if she doesn't get hurt too.
Yeah, they had a great season as well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So how do you overcome that? Because she was a 25 point per game scorer, 3-point extraordinaire. How do you adjust losing a talent like that?
I think the biggest thing is and I've kind of preached this for years, and people always have thought I've been crazy, but I always tell people, like, I try to build my team so that if I didn't have my best player for whatever reason, injury, or they decide to walk away, or, I try to build my team so that I still have a team in place that can compete. I think the biggest thing that we had to adjust to, though, was who was going to fill that leadership void, who was going to step up and be the players. And I'll say players because you don't replace Maddie Olsen with one person. It's impossible. You don't just be like, oh, hey, we're going to drop you in here and now you're going to go do what she did, because she was a very well-rounded player. Like, she's not really weak in any areas. Besides maybe she's just a little bit shorter than you would have liked, but you can't do anything about that. So the biggest thing is I pulled all the seniors aside and I just had conversations with them about how important their leadership was going to be, and how they approach the season was going to be how these younger kids, who I think are very like, oh, we've got to have Maddie. And so a lot of credit goes to those older kids who just, from Taylor Thomas to Sienna Taylor, like, they all just stepped up and played their leadership roles very well. And we just kind of did it, team by committee.
Definitely.
The thing I noticed too is watching the games is, you don't want anyone injured, but it seemed like the girls were like, they had a rally, they kind of had that like deep desire to do good for Maddie. And, that's what I noticed about your team is I really saw a lot of, like, they could get fired up. She's cheering on the bench, and they had someone, like, if they weren't doing well, maybe they don't look at coach, they kind of look at her and like can find that extra step. So I noticed that over the course of some of those games too.
Yes, for sure. And it took us about 9 games to figure out what that rally looked like, but we got there. But yeah, I was really impressed because it would be really easy in Maddie's spot. Montana State held their scholarship for her. Like, it'd be really easy to not be that involved in the season. And I bet she missed 5 practices throughout the season because she had physical therapy. So when you talk about a leader, like, she 100% exhibited that in every way possible with what she was able to do this season.
Yeah. And then another incredible moment I thought came in that state championship game where, there's 5 seconds left, something like that. And you took the time to send Maddie Olsen into the game. She had dressed out. She was wearing her uniform, obviously had the knee brace on and everything. And she kind of went out onto the court and played it out and got a nice standing ovation from fans on both sides. I thought that was a really cool moment. Was that something you had planned coming in? Was that a spontaneous decision?
Her and I had talked about her dressing for state before. She had got the clear to at least do like warm-ups with us. And so I asked her as we were getting ready into the game, I said, either one way or the other, I said, if there's a chance at the end of the game, like, what do you want to do? And she was really nervous at first. And then, we had that rough stretch against Burley in the middle of the game where the game kind of got out of hand. I thought we were going to pull it back there for just a few minutes. And then, we got down to that last minute and you realized that it wasn't going to be anything. And for me, so it was kind of unscripted, but unscripted. For me, though, it was really important because Maddie has meant so much to this program. Maddie has been, really, she's been the piece that's allowed us to kind of turn our program around, to get us in terms of building our culture the right way and competing the right way and showing kids that we're not just here to, show up and play our game and go home. We're here to win. And so it was a big thing for me if the opportunity was going to present itself to get her on that court, just because she had worked so hard for that. And in a lot of ways, like, we're not there without the things that she's done for us for the previous 3 years. And so it was unscripted, but it was definitely something that had been on my mind the whole tournament.
It was such a great moment. And I really applaud you and your program for what you've been able to do. You talked about building the program up. How long have you been coaching at Skyline?
I will be going into my 8th year this year.
Okay. And what was the program like when you took it over? It was kind of in a bad spot, right?
A bad spot's a nice way to put that. Yeah, we were in rough shape. I took over. They had won, I want to say, like 5 to 7 games the previous 2 years. There was a lot of tension between coach and players and parents and coach. And so I kind of walked into a spot where, we had a lot of kids that were unsure that they wanted to continue playing basketball. In fact, my first 2 years, like we would go around and we were begging kids that, looked like they could be athletic, looked like they could, show some sort of basketball skill. And we were recruiting within our own walls as hard as we could just to fill our JV and freshman teams. And so those first 3 years were rough. We won, I think, 4 games our first year, 5 our second year, and I think 5 or 6 our third year. And it was one of those things you just felt like, man, are we ever going to get this really turned around? Are we ever going to get back to being competitive? And, but it took time. It took consistency. It took us, me and my coaching staff. My assistant coach has been with me all 8 years. And, we put hours and hours into helping the girls develop and coaching younger teams. And, it all just takes time to pay off. But yeah, we were in a very non-competitive spot when I took over. Like, nobody thought that Skyline was even a team to, like, we were basically the bi-week practice that you have, And so we were really glad to, in fact, one of my favorite moments, we were coaching, I was coaching an 8th grade team in a summer tournament, and we beat one of the local teams. And I heard one of the parents from the stands goes, "We don't lose to Skyline. Nobody loses to Skyline." Like, they were very frustrated that, we had started winning some stuff. And so it's been fun to see that whole progression, and it's been good. Now that we're on the other end of it, it's fun to see how far we've really come, because there were some long days in between there. So.
Yeah. And we talked about Maddie Olson committing to Montana State University. I saw on social media this past weekend, another one of your players, Shay Shippen, has been offered by Montana State. So the Bobcats must really like what's cooking at Skyline.
Right, I guess. No, I've had a pretty good relationship with that coaching staff up there. And, we haven't talked about Shay yet, but Shay's another special player coming up through our program. Obviously you just look at what she did in her freshman season, having to fill the bulk majority of our offensive, she is kind of our offensive catalyst. And so, I think it's easy for people to see the caliber that she has, and she has that little bit bigger body, both height wise and build wise. And so she is going to be a very good college candidate, and Montana State has offered, which was extremely awesome. And, we'll see how it all plays out.
I will say I would not want to stand in to take a charge against Shay Shippen.
She's also a pretty good tennis player. She made it to state as a freshman in singles. So yeah.
So here's the crazy thing. We were talking about this. She actually was a 4-sport athlete this year. She played volleyball, basketball, tennis, and she also ran track. She qualified for state in all 4 events. In all 4 sports. Yeah. Wow. Pretty amazing.
And of course, she's not even the only Shippen on the team. There's Kaisa as well.
Yes. Yep.
And so who are, we know about the Shippens. Who are other players that you are leaning on through the off season and as we look ahead to 2022-23?
So we've got a couple juniors that are coming into their senior season that have really spent some time, because they were kind of our role players, bench players last year. So we've got Sophie Taylor and Kenzie Taylor and Aaliyah Park, who are hoping can really step in and fill some of those senior leadership. Because I really think that sometimes we forget how important being a leader is, and it being your last ride. And when you're a senior, you go, you know what, this is my time to really step up. And so we're hoping to see them really do that. In terms of the players that are going to come in and be like those high impact players, we lost 3 real key players in Teresa Ledesma, Taylor Thomas, and Sienna. So, we bring Shay back, we bring Kaisa back, we bring Claire Peterson back, who is just one of the fastest, quickest defenders that I've ever seen in my life. And I've coached some pretty good defenders in my day. We bring back a couple of sophomores coming into their junior year. Amy Basic, who is a 6-footer who's very, very sound defensively, has some really strong abilities at the basket. When we can get her confidence to where she feels like she can just cut loose. And then we're bringing back another guard by the name of Alexa Hackey, who is a very good defensive player, as well as a really good distributor of the basketball. So, like, we've got a lot of good pieces that are in place, that are in play. It should be a pretty fun opportunity this summer to really see where people fit.
Hackey is a good distributor. You don't say. Lachlan, of course, the quarterback on the football
Right.
team. So.
I think she plays tennis too, or a sister maybe.
Maybe a sister. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
She doesn't.
because
She's a
name,
spring volleyball girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know coming in, Sean, you had one big question on your mind, and it's the question that's really dominated off-season basketball talk, Sean. So I'll let you go ahead and take it.
About the shot clock.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have lots of questions, but no. Yeah. Just the shot clock. I know Skyline put it in last year. Maybe you guys put it in super early. You knew
we
it
had
was
it
coming.
installed by about Christmas.
Yeah. So they've had it in the whole time. It's been a hot debate. Everyone has their own. I've talked to a bunch of coaches. Everyone feels one way or another, but it looks like you guys had a tournament using it this year. So how did it go? What do you have to say about that?
The tournament was really fun. We had 8 teams from around the area come in, a couple from Boise, a couple from Twin Falls. And, the biggest reason that we wanted to do it is it was partly for the kids. I don't think the kids are going to be the biggest issue with that. I think they adapt to those things really well. I think for us coaches, it gave us an opportunity to kind of see some of the things that we're going to have to adapt to in our coaching and our styles of play, because it changes it. But realistically, we needed the officials to start getting some hands-on experience. And what was really nice, what we found out as I was working with the commissioner over here at District 6, James Bolin, is, we just saw some of those things that are going to be small issues that until you actually get on the floor and do it, you don't realize that's going to be an issue. So like one of them was when a ball goes through the basket, clock's still running. When do we, as the shot clock timer, actually start the shot clock timer? Is it when the 5-second count starts, which is right after the ball is picked up by the other team? Or is it when they actually get the inbound pass completed? And so those were just some of the little things that we were able to.
And then did
find
you have
the wrinkles
like a separate person running that at the table?
Yes. So we had a shot clock. We had a shot clock person, the clock operator. We're actually going to, when this implements, I think we're trying to get our 4A conference, the High Country Conference, to commit to running a shot clock this year, if it passes, which it should. But one of the things that we've talked about with the commissioner, with James, is we want to be able to train our JV officials to be our shot clock operators, so that there's not a lot of discrepancies with what we're getting from gym to gym to gym, because there are a lot of gray areas that could exist if everybody has their own individual trainings.
Yeah, those
were some things that were good that came out of that.
Yeah, talking with my AD, they were saying they want to pay, when they get done with the freshman game, to come do the shot clock for the varsity game, or that was kind of their plan, is to keep that guy another hour and a half or whatever to operate that. So that person's doing it, right? So someone who obviously knows how to do it, and it's pretty interesting, pretty exciting. I think good for Idaho personally, but.
Oh, I do too. And honestly, if you ask me what the best part of that tournament was, we had some blowout games. We got blown out one time. You have lots of different scenarios, but the game never stopped. You didn't have that slow down, end of half, end of the game where you're, running 2 minutes and the other team's just playing keep away from you. And so it did, even when the games were 30 points, they were still playing. It was still up and down. It was still fast paced. It was still, I see a lot of good that's going to come from it. And I think it's going to, especially in girls, I think it's going to be a great opportunity to get girls to go, oh, hey, we've got to increase our abilities a little bit to play this way. So it'll be fun. I was glad that we did it. And all the response that we got from the coaches was really positive. The officials really liked what we did. So I think we're headed in a good direction.
Yeah, because so many of those games, right, end it the last 3 minutes of games is so important, and now that dynamic totally changes. So
yes,
I think that'll be great, and that'll be coaches are going to have to adjust to that. But I mean, so many high school basketball games are kind of decided in the last 3 to 2 minutes sometimes. So it should be exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
The other big adjustment that you as a coach had to make this past year was the first time ever the state decided to seed the state tournament based upon your regular season max preps ranking. And that was a subject of, depending on which school you talk to, controversy or applause. What did you think about it one season in?
I loved it. I wish that we would have had it the year before. Because it made it so that you had, like, I felt like when you look at the brackets at the state tournament, they were balanced. Now, obviously, there were still some issues of, when you have an upset team that comes in and now replaces the lowest seed and it ends up pitting a Thunder Ridge and a Rigby together the first game of the state tournament, but those are just issues you're going to have no matter what. But I really like the seeding style because I felt like it put the teams that were supposed to play each other against each other instead of just a randomized this conference versus this conference. And, it just happens that the best two teams meet in the semifinals compared to the state championship. So,
yeah, I think back to 2 years ago, and it still blows my mind that a predetermined bracket set up two conference opponents in boys and girls, right? Skyline's girls, you guys had to play Blackfoot, and the Skyline boys had to play Hillcrest. I still couldn't wrap my head around that. So
6 times in a season, 6 times. I mean, our last 4 games that season were against Blackfoot. Before we district championship, semifinals, district championship, state. And so, I've never experienced that before, but I'll tell you what, opponent burnout is a real thing. So yeah, it was something.
Did that make you think about how you wanted to put your schedule together? Your schedule's pretty locked in already because of the agreement you have with the 5A High Country Conference schools, right?
Yes, it is. So, it doesn't necessarily make us think about that, because we have, I think 16 of our 21 games are already booked for us. We don't have a lot of say.
Must be nice.
We get ourselves a tournament. Yeah, it has its pros and cons, right? But we end up getting a tournament, and then we end up with, the last 2 years we played Sugar, and I think we've got them on our schedule again, which is just a good conference opponent. But we're in a spot where I want to play some bigger, tougher teams, and it actually really benefited us this year. If you look at our schedule, we had the toughest schedule in the state of Idaho in terms of girls, 4A through or 5A through 1A. But the thing that really helped us is, you look at the losses that we had. We lost 4 times to Blackfoot. We lost once to Burley. We lost twice to Rigby. We lost twice to Thunder Ridge, and then we lost twice to Sugar. Well, 6 of those 13 losses we had, 14 losses, 6 of those 14 losses ended up being to the number 1 and 2 teams in the state of Idaho. So, it really ended up helping us in the end because we were very battle tested. We knew that we could compete with people. It was just, it just didn't always look pretty during the regular season. So, but I liked it. I liked the schedule, the way that it was set up.
Definitely. And I think there's probably some small tweaks that need to be made, but man, we are light years ahead of where we used to be. I agree with you completely.
Yes.
So
yeah, I know it's been batted around a little bit, and I really like this possibility that they've talked about doing, each conference gets their district champion, it gets qualified for state. And then we talk about taking the next, I think it's teams 6 through 11, and they would play a 1-game play-in game to determine the next 8 or the next 3 teams. And, so that was one option that we looked at with in one of the coaches committees that I was part of. And I was like, man, that would be a really nice way, because then it really gives those teams, for example, for our district, Bonneville and Shelley were still 2 of the toughest teams in the state if you look at their actual schedules. And so, but they didn't get a chance because they just happened to be behind us and behind Blackfoot. So, there was no opportunity for them to ever possibly qualify for state this year.
Well, and the school that Sean teaches at Century, right? They're in the same boat, especially on that boys side where it was. So yeah, I agree. The expanded playoffs would be nice. So that's something that was talked about and kind of kicked around.
We talked about it in the IBCA, the Idaho Basketball Coaches Association. I know that they were sending some information in. I don't know how much traction it's got. when that idea was presented, I was like, I'm all in. Like, I would be all for that, because it does, like, I do believe you should give the teams that deserve to be there a shot to get there. And it does value your district tournament, because you could still have an upset team that walks through and automatically qualifies, but then it doesn't necessarily punish the team that had the upset at state. They still get a chance to go compete at state. So
very
we'll
interesting.
See how it goes. Right. I think we got some possibilities in the near future that we get to look at. So
it's an exciting time to be a coach, especially at Skyline, where you've built such a great program. Ty Keck, girls basketball coach from Skyline High. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's fun. We'll keep an eye on what the Lady Grizz are up to this next season. I think it's going to be another strong year overall in athletics for the Skyline High girls. So, all right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Appreciate it. All right, Sean, there we go. Ty Keck, head girls basketball coach from Skyline. What a great interview.
Yeah, it was great. It was a very interesting story to watch unfold at girls basketball. So to kind of get the inside track on it, I think was absolutely amazing.
And now, they aren't going to be able to sneak up on anybody this year, especially with what Blackfoot lost in graduation. I think Skyline could really take this league by the horns. And so
you'd have to think they're probably the preseason conference favorites at this point, right? I mean, the Shippens and just what they've been able to do. And Blackfoot, I think everyone was a senior, if I'm not mistaken, like all the starters.
Yeah, they'll have a couple of role players or key players that are back, but they're
replacing some of the best players in the state. So definitely. Tough. That'll be fun. That'll be fun for them as well.
All right. Well, Sean, thanks for hopping on for this off-season Prepcast here. Stay tuned. We will have more of these long-form interviews with other notable coaches and athletes along the way as well. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, to this off-season edition of the East Idaho Prepcast. For Sean Kane, I'm Brandon Baney. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.